Good evening. My name is Amber Waters, and tonight I'd like to talk to you about the movie Remember the Titans and how certain leadership styles that we have learned during the course of this term were depicted in the film. As many of you know, Remember the Titans took place in the 1970s, which was a very difficult time in our nation's history. Schools were being integrated, and people were being forced to experience things that they had not had to do so up until this point in our history. Remember the Titans follows a high school in Virginia where you have the football teams of two different schools being integrated into one new school, and the young men on the team being led by new coaches for both sides and having to learn how to get through that to change a culture, if you will, of how things are run. Now, the core leadership styles of the two coaches that are the main characters of the movie are very different. Coach Herman Boone, who was the head coach of the black high school prior to integration, has a very authoritative leadership style. He doesn't see race. He treats all players as football players. They are all treated the same, and he has a very it's my way or the highway type of mentality. He does not ask for the opinion of his players. He does not care. One such scene is the scene where he's telling them about getting a tie. If you don't own one, borrow one from your dad. If you ain't got a dad, trade for it from a bum from the street. I know I probably butchered that, but you get the idea. On the other hand, you have Coach Yost. Now, Coach Yost was the head coach of the White High School prior to the integration, and when the schools integrated, he had to make some very difficult decisions, such as, does he even stay on and be demoted to an assistant coach, or does he go on to find another head coaching job at another high school? Now, Coach Yost has a very democratic leadership style, so he takes into consideration his players' feelings, and there's a scene where all of the white football players decide that if Coach Yost is not going to stay, then they're not going to stay, which would be detrimental to the overall goals of the school and the goals of integrating these two teams together to see what would happen. Of the two leadership styles that I've discussed, amongst others that are in the film that I haven't discussed, I think that I would like to emulate kind of a hybrid of the two. I'm in the people business, therefore democratic leadership style like that of Coach Yost is something that is very important to me. You have to listen to the people to understand how to lead them. I've said in my leadership philosophy that I just wrote, anyone can be a manager, but it takes a real person to be a leader, and I think you have to be a democratic leader for that to be successful. With that being said, there are times in life where you have to be a little bit more authoritative depending on your followers, and you have to be able to blend different leadership styles to make them work for your situation. When it comes to Kelly's followership description, the scene that I selected is the one called Strong Side. If you go on YouTube, you can pick that one out without having to watch the entire movie. But for those of you who are interested, it is the scene where they are at camp and they start to get into a little scuffle, a little bit of an argument and some talking back and forth, and one of the coaches goes to step in and Coach Yost stops him and says, no, let's wait, let's see how these boys figure it out on their own. I want to see their thought processes. The followership model has several different types of followers that he discusses, and I'd like to say that in the beginning of this whole process, the students are more pragmatic followers. They tend to not follow unless most of the team is going to follow. As you notice, it seemed that of the black players said, okay, we're going to do it because everybody else is doing it. And all of the white players said they're going to do it because all of their friends are doing it. And then over the course of the movie and over the course of time at camp, they transition into more yes people. By that, I mean that they buy into what Coach Boone and Coach Yost are trying to teach them. They buy into the idea of integration, the idea of taking the best of both worlds and making something even greater. And I feel that that is probably one of the best examples of following that I can come up with. As to how that works in conjunction with the leadership styles, Coach Boone had that authoritative leadership all the way up through the beginning of camp, but then Coach Yost is the one that you see kind of holding the other coaches back and saying, let's let these guys settle this. Let's let them work it out for themselves. And I believe that that was an appropriate interaction between the leader and the follower in this given situation, because it forced the young men to become independent thinkers, to figure out if they really truly believed in the cause and if they wanted to make this work. Now, the organizational cultural concerns that you've challenged us with, the biggest cultural concern that I see was the fact of they had to address the effects of segregation and integration on the schools. Coach Boone and Coach Yost's leadership styles contributed to the success of this desired change. I feel that by the end of the football season, the team was one team. They enjoyed each other's company. You see them changing the hearts and the minds of the community. So through the leadership styles, through their followership, through everything that they go through as a team in the movie, they really change the attitudes of the public. In conclusion, I'd like to kind of sum everything up. I feel that to be a great leader, you have to be able to kind of switch back and forth between leadership styles, whether you're authoritative for this particular project or democratic or you're a transactional leader, any of the types that we have learned about over the course of this term. But number one, you have to be a good follower before you can ever dream of being a good leader. Now that that's sunk in a little bit, to be a good follower, I think that you have to be able to develop your own critical thinking skills. You can't just be a yes man all the time. Leaders really like to see you come to terms and offer new ideas on how to follow them. Remember the Titans taught all of us a great lesson. It taught us how to work as a team, how to become critical thinkers, and best of all, how to become leaders in our nation, leaders in our communities, and even in our classrooms. I'd like to thank you for listening to my presentation, and good luck on your final exams. I have had a wonderful journey through this minor, and I look forward to working with you all in the future. Thank you, and have a great evening.